Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce a long lost cousin, Mr. Krayem, Rabieh Krayem. I just have a question for you.
Yeah.
How does a migrant come here to Australia at 8 years old, end up landing one of the biggest roles in Australia?
Well, that's a good question, actually. At the age of 62 now, I can say that was sort of 50 odd years back when I came out here. I think you never know where opportunities arise.
That's right.
I think that people will have their own identities, but I think it always starts. For us, it all started about your upbringing, and it's an interesting part because when we came out to Australia in the early 70s, everyone changed their names.
That's right.
If you were a Muhammad, you became a Michael. If you were Ahmed, you became an Alan. And everyone, you became, Farouk, you became a Frank. But I think that my father instilled that your name is your identity. And so I think you don't appreciate those things until you get older. So, imagine being, 8-year-old going to Coogee Primary School, your name is Rabieh or Rabi, and it's and couldn't speak a word of English. I think that's, now, as you go back, it's how you're brought up. And,
That's right.
I think the opportunities is you make the most of it. But you also got to be around good people at the same time. And I think your values set who you are. And it doesn't matter where you come from, whether you're Lebanese, whether you're Greek, whether you're Italian. I think it establishes the foundation of your family upbringings and the values that you instill and what you go through. And you never take anything for granted.
No, you don't. And look, you said you went to Coogee Primary School.
Coogee Primary Schools.
And I remember when I went to primary school, my father, one of his indeed family members was your father, his uncle. And he used to always say, your uncle is a tough man, but he's a lovely man. But he's extremely tough in the sense he expects hard work and discipline.
Yeah, I think as a child growing up in a family of 6 and then 7, I think you understand. I said it comes back to the values and expectations, and the values always been education was a big thing.
That's right.
For someone like him who never went to school, left school early age, had to start working, and then came out to Australia. Then obviously your family followed. I think for him life was tough, and he didn't want that for the kids.
That's right.
So therefore, the expectation through education, you create opportunities, and I think what he instilled was that. You need to work hard. And if you work, it doesn't matter what it is.
That's right.
And anything you do, you work hard enough, you will achieve success. And success could be different things. Everyone has success differently. Success can't be measured by what position you hold or what monetary value you earn. People define their own success. And I think sometimes nowadays, people have lost what side of success is. I know growing up, success was able to have food on the table.
Wow.
So that makes a big difference. But I think you never forget where you come from. And I think fundamentally it's those things at the early beginnings. As a kid, you don't understand it. You actually don't appreciate it till you get older and understand some of the decision-making processes, why things happened. But as a child, you never thought you missed out on anything because you didn't know any better.
That's right.
So I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, I really like how you said that previously or a few years ago, their measure of success will be what they identify as success to them. It wouldn't be necessarily prestige or financial gain or position. And as simple as having food on the table and being happy with their family camaraderie, that's them being successful compared to someone else who views between their lens of what is the measure of success to them.
Yeah, look, I think it's all about opportunity as well. I think you make the most of your opportunities. I mean, I was one of the, classified. I'm the middle child, so so I always say I'm the sort of forgotten one. But I didn't finish high school. Like I left school at the end of grade 10, started grade 11, and because school and I didn't mix until you find out as you get older, you realise, well, 1, I needed glasses. 2, I was dyslexic.
Oh wow!
But never knew all those things at school, and so for me, my mother found me my first job. We had a takeaway shop in Kurnell, and she was reading, and I wanted to leave school, and I remember I got a job interview, and I got a job, and they wanted to ring the person who wanted to interview me said, I want to talk to your mother. Well, obviously, my mother can't speak English, so he spoke to my sister, Hajj Hisham, and he said to her, look, he's too good. Let him finish school, and I'll give him a job after he finishes school. And I said, right. So I went grade 11, frustrated, and then my mother found a job for me. There was an ad for clerical staff at the Department of Main Roads.
Wow.
And I went to the job, got the job, interviewed, and there you go. And I left school at, in 1980, I think, or 80, 81, and started working for the Department of Main Roads. And that was the sort of start of the journey of where you go. But, and as I said, nowadays, it's a little bit different.
That's
nowadays,
right.
Education is a big thing, school. I mean, when I went to school, a grade 10 certificate meant something.
That's right.
Today, even a high school certificate means nothing.
Exactly.
So it's a different era. But I think fundamentally, nothing has changed from when I was growing up to what it is today.
Okay.
It's only people just don't understand what success, what values, and where their positions are. And I see it every day. Like, I'm 62 now. I've seen many things in my, 45 years working, and things don't change. It's just that people change.
That's a great quote. That's called a mic drop moment on the podcast. Things don't change, people change.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, we've all, your upbringing is the same, and I think your values are who you are. And it's defined by both your home life, your friendships, and what you do. And the material things mean certain things to different people. And we've all been through it, whether it be, driving a Mercedes car or driving. I think now I drive probably I drive a Sanyong now. And it's simply because it doesn't mean anything outside of what you want to do. I mean, you go back and learn as a kid, growing up, I played rugby league for Coogee Randwick. Couldn't speak a word of English. Now, that sporting club embraced who we were.
Oh.
As kids playing rugby league back then, couldn't speak a word, played rugby league, could run. And then as you get older, you go through and say, okay, we've lost the culture of community sport. So one of my biggest passions now is community sport and pushing the cause that community sporting organisations can make a big difference. Nowadays I see it more. People will take their child, boy, girl, drop them off, pick them up, and off they go. Kids don't spend enough time in that environment. Where as a kid, I was growing up, spending all day at the football club was a way to do it. It kept you out of trouble. And I think we've lost this era now. As someone who's been, head of Cronulla, head of the Cowboys, North Queensland Fury, MacArthur, and all those sort of things, they're all great elite sporting teams. But I think what we had a generation now where we lost, everything was about the elite. And I think we lost focus of community. So that's my passions. It's a driving force I've had with all levels of government in Queensland and even the federal government, in that, the emphasis on getting kids to play sport and empowering sport, community organisation, makes a big difference.
So you went from being at the top echelon of these rugby league clubs, and recently MacArthur FC, am I right, in the A-League? Yep. You had a stint there. North Queensland Cowboys, yes, you said, and Cronulla Sharks soon?
Cronulla Sharks, yeah.
Yep. And then to actually shelving the elite and going down to the pathways and the grassroots level and enriching community sports, you felt like that was your calling compared to being at the top flight?
Well, I think I've always had a passion for community sport, and I think that, we all get carried away in the bubble some days, and, whether it would be, when I was a Cronulla and, it was really interesting having a Lebanese Muslim head of Cronulla Leagues Club in those days, and this is the most, we're talking about the early 90s, and then going from there up to Cowboys and to North Queensland, which people deemed that, the regional Queensland probably the most, the conservatives,
that's right.
But you're embraced of who you are.
Okay.
But I think you go through that, but you go back and thinking, what would start us? And, you go back to how do you fix some of the issues, and social issues is the big thing. And it's not, and sport to me was always been an avenue to be a solution to some of our problems. It's not the solution to every problem, but it's a start. So for the last, it'd have to be at least 10, 12 years now, I've been focused, even though when I was involved with MacArthur and North Queensland Fury, there's still that passion of grassroots football now rather than rugby league. And predominantly, probably in the last 6 years, involved with Wynnum Football Club. Right? And here's a club that's, back then when I took over, when they asked me to help them, was 97 years old.
Wow.
One of the old sport football clubs, was on its knees. It had about 350, 360 players, but had this land. And okay, well, let's see what we can do. COVID allowed the opportunity for me because I stopped travelling.
Ah.
So I got stuck in Brisbane. I thought, well, let's just focus on that. And now this club in 2025 will have nearly 1,600 players, has one of the best facilities, and about to build a football centre, named the Clare Polkinghorne Football Centre after the Matilda. But we've embraced, and we've done some research, and as a community club, we're no different. We're the same as a small city, small country town. Football is a byproduct we are, and I think the emphasis for everybody is to re-engage in a community sporting organisations, and everyone can volunteer. They just don't know how to volunteer, and especially for migrants, I think that it's a club like ours, which is predominantly hasn't been an ethnic-based club.
That's right.
Right. Now we've got multicultural, and it's about whether you cater for the different types of people, and you produce a whole lot of things. But most importantly, you make people welcome. And I think, our job is not to create a Socceroo Matilda. Our job is to get kids off the street, create an environment, give them the best opportunity where they can end up becoming a Socceroo Matilda.
You're basically creating or cultivating a sense of belonging for anyone to just come and join and feel like they belong to that football club, regardless of their race.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. I think sometimes we pigeonhole people into things. And I think one of my frustrations that over the years that I've seen, even within our own community, is that we forget how we all started. We all put ourselves in many times I see, leaders within our own community put themselves on their own pedestal. Right? And it's across everybody. When someone disagrees with somebody, let's go and set something up ourselves because we can do it better.
Yeah.
And we're rife with it in our community, right? I mean, I see it as an outsider looking in, who's going to be the next one? Well, let's set up our own charity. Let's set up our own thing because we disagree with somebody. And until such time as we all remember how we got to where we were and unite, we'll always be divided. And I think, people have this whole scenario that they always want to be smarter than someone else. Well, just remember, we're all the same. We all have different skill set. And I think as a united front, we're a lot more cohesive. We don't be smarter than the person next to us. We can all work together. It's just understanding how we do. But sometimes I've seen it and it doesn't matter. And I think we're a prime example in our community. No different others. Ego takes over skill.
Tall pop syndrome?
I don't know whether it's tall pop syndrome. I think it's more of about, we get caught up in the political landscape.
Okay.
And, we all want to be, you get a jet ski, I want a boat. You get a carport, I want a garage. And I think the scenario is that sometimes we forget, let's just appreciate what we have.
What we have.
And when the opportunities arise, we take those opportunities. But sometimes we're actually trying to create something that's not there, or it's easy to criticize somebody. It's easy to talk about a problem. The hard part's talking about the solution. And, as a community, we always want to talk about the problem. But when it comes to the solution, anybody can sit in a room and attack you. That's the easy part.
It's got goosebumps, yeah.
Very few people can sit in a room and say, let's work on a solution. And my whole philosophy has been, even for us at a club, whatever business I'm in or what we do, we focus on the solution first before we start blaming somebody. What we do is let's blame everybody first. And then let's focus on the solution. By that stage, we've lost our way. And I think that's part of the change. The strength of the Lebanese community has always been, if you go back to when we first came out, was solution first, problem second.
That's
now,
right.
I think our community's focused on the problem, then we'll worry about the solution. And I think until we change that mindset and we stop trying to compare ourselves to other people, we are who we are, and appreciate what we have and bind together. I think we're always going to struggle.
I find that with many people that I speak to, that regardless of one's degree or intelligence level, they somehow shift off focusing on the solution when faced with a problem, and they just attack and focus on the problem. And I don't know how it doesn't intertwine. Like, one's capable enough, for example, they got the education, they've got the position that they're in, but then they somehow find it easier to attack the individual in the room rather than, okay, this is the problem. What is the solution, rather than like what you said?
I think human nature tells you, how do I score points? I mean, you've got to understand is where's it coming from? What is it what you're trying to do? Are we here to work together to do whatever we do, whether it be help youth, build a sporting club, do what you're doing? All those sort of things are why we're doing it. Mm. And I think once we discover that, I mean, we have as a community, especially here in Sydney, we have a strong community, highly talented, highly skilled people. but sometimes self-interest takes over.
Self-interest.
Of everything. And we haven't learned that, as a united front, we're a lot stronger. We might not agree. I mean, the world, you don't want to live in a world where you agree with everybody, but you understand is to achieve outcomes, achieve results, you have to be together. No different to a sporting team. Do you think, in a sporting club, whether it be a rugby league side or an A-League side, that's all unity? It's not. But what their common goal is the club. And it's like, that's why I love sport. The sport analogy is the successful clubs are club 1, team 2, player 3, right? In society, we go, me 1, me 2, me 3, right? And I think what sport does, and what we need, what sport lost this way, is we forgot the humility of sport. That is what we focused on winning rather than developing. I don't know anyone that goes to a sporting event that doesn't want to win.
That's right.
That's the beauty of sport. But I think what we need to learn from sport is sport develops us, gives us characteristics. It puts us into positions that we don't normally do every day. And I think we have lost that way because we're too focused on the result of the outcome. And it's really interesting. I mean, you look at, kids play sport, they lose the game, they go in the car. What does dad do? He thinks he's an expert, tells the kid he had a bad day. The kid says, hates it. 2-3 weeks later, they do the same thing. He quits sport.
Wow.
Right. So, most kids will leave sport based on the car ride home. I mean, how many times have you seen it? You go to a rugby league game.
Yeah.
Kids, parents lose a game. First, let's abuse the referee.
That's right.
Secondly, let's blame everyone else. And it's always either the coach, the player, the referee, right? And we turn what should be a positive experience into a negative experience. And I think we're a long way from it. Like as a kid, when I started playing rugby league, as I said, I couldn't speak English, but it was the enjoyment of going and being part of something. Even when we moved back up to Picnic Point, playing for Reesby Central, I don't think we won a game of football in 1 year. But the focus wasn't about let's win every game. You're not going to be the next Steve Mortimer or Terry Lamb or all those sort of things. I think what it was, you learned the value of acknowledging, sharing, winning, losing. We all have to win. We'll have to lose. And I think that's where sport has lost its way. We have to change that.
Well, I'm kind of digressing here, but since we're on the topic of sport, what do you think about I think when I took over a local club at an amateur level, they had just introduced that between the ages of 6 or the minimum age till the age of 12, no results. What do you think of that in terms of when I grew up, I played local sport. I was a sports fanatic. I thought I was the best at every sport, had skill and talent, but it was always that competition that drove me, regardless of what level I played at. Then when I took on the club, it was under 6 to under 12, no results. Have fun.
I think the first thing, doesn't matter where, like in football now, there are no results up to the age of 12. There's no ladders, nothing. Kids know who win, who loses.
Yeah, that's right.
There's nothing of that. And that's okay. But I think that what happened, and I think what we're trying to do is reverse the problems that we created because we tried to win all, sports. I think the turn came around when everything became professional. And we lost what community sport clubs lost their identity. They didn't forget what they were because the focus was whether it became the Bulldogs or the Broncos or the Cowboys, it doesn't matter, it became that focused. And I think we tried to turn everybody into that next player rather than let the kids enjoy it. They'll win when they win, they'll lose when they win. I mean, nowadays I see kids will switch clubs because their team's losing. Oh, my son doesn't like losing, so let's switch, right? But we've created that environment because kids would rather win who remembers who won the under-12 rugby league team? Or no one remembers it, but people remember the kids out of it. And, even the kids themselves, won't remember. If you ask a child now who you played football with, rugby league at the under-12s, they won't tell you what they did. They'll remember who they played with.
That's right.
And I think that's what we don't talk about is that the friendships that you've created, whether it be a school, but mostly in sport, you became friends, and you create. But then we went a way where it was really going to play sport was like a job, even on the 12, because parents and kids would drop off. They didn't have that sort of bind to that club culture, right? When, you ran a sporting club, the successful clubs create that culture around them, At our club, We have a senior team. We have a 3-year-olds. They're treated exactly the same.
Humility.
Right. Well, they're no more important. The 3-year-old's no more important than the senior person. The senior person, no more. It's just where they sit in the train. Look, at the end of the day, our senior football club, we play in the state competition, the highest level. Our team, well, I call them the star on the tree, because you can always replace the star. Can't change the tree, right? So, and I think that's what we've lost. And I think we've created a culture, rugby league's the same, soccer's the same. Every sport's going through it where, winning's become overcoming what it is because everyone wants to win a trophy. My view on give everyone a trophy at the start of the year and say, you're all winners, now let the kid have fun. So, and we've created that. That's why you end up with, violence, parents getting upset, want to abuse the referee because the parents are more vested in the child. So do we have is it a thing that can be fixed overnight? No. But I think clubs have to be involved more. But I think governments at local, state and federal government have to be more put back into clubs, put back into community sport that actually takes pressure off volunteers.
Do you think we have a problem in the A-League in the sense of that retention from the gap between the community grassroots level to the A-League with the NPL? I know you tried to do, or you're involved in creating the
National Second Division. I think the issue is that the A-League has far bigger issues. I think football in our country, we have too many divisions in our. I think I described football to someone nowadays like the poverty in India. You can't ever fix it, right? But what you can do is fix little bits and pieces you can. I think we're going through a change. There is no doubt football is the number one participation sport, right? You've seen the growth and you make it happen. As a person who's a diehard rugby league person, now people say I'm a diehard football person.
You are, yeah.
For a different reason. I think football opens up so many opportunities for children, for kids, both boys and girls in particular, that there are greater opportunities. It's internationally opportunities where you can play or coach or whatever you want to do. But and it opens up the world where rugby league is a narrow field. Very popular. I'm still a rugby league supporter, but reality from a football perspective, it's far bigger than what we think here in Australia. And the more you travel, the more you get involved, you see how big it is. And I think sport breaks all barriers. It doesn't matter colour, race, religion, sport breaks all that. It's what causes it is the adults that are running our sport.
That greatly said. Do you think we'll head to a direction or we'll reach a time where the A-League would have a second division where clubs will get relegated? Do you find that being in the A-League compared to the English Premier League, that if you come last, you're still in the competition? Does that affect the competition? Is that one of your passions as to why you're trying
I think that, if you asked me that question 10 years ago, I might have said differently. The more I get involved and you talk, and what it senses to be promoted, relegated, it's the excitement of the game. And I think promotion relegation will only enhance the A-League if it happens. It'll be its biggest shot in the arm because there are consequences for bad performances, where at the moment there are no consequences outside of your supporters attacking you, bad press, all that. But there is no consequence. You drop. And I think for the game to go through, I got no doubt it will happen. Whether it happens in the next 5 years, I think momentum is going to shift. It'll force it to happen because the game is at a tipping point. If you look at the A-League at the moment, it's got some issues, significant issues. And I think the change, the shift will be significant. It'll force it to happen, and then the game will benefit. And I think this is where the game has to come number one. And I think it's hard. It's very hard if you're an owner of a club and you've put in $20 million and you've been promised what you're going to do. Is what does it look like? So I think it'll come. There will be a shift of the way, and it will happen. And I think once that happens, the game will take a significant shift. But also, people understand, not everyone can afford to play in the A-League.
That's right.
Right? Market forces have to dictate that. Not every club is up to it. Like everyone wants to be what they can, but sometimes you actually got to understand where you sit in the food chain.
Oh.
Even here, the NPL is a prime example. Not everybody has the capability to play NPL 1. We all think we want to, and we all try and create it, but it doesn't. It's not that easy. So I think you've got to let Nate sort itself out, and clubs will sort themselves out. Clubs will go broke. That's been for 100 years. Clubs are only strong as the people who run the clubs. Players come and go. But if you build infrastructure to withstand everything, if you have strong committees, clubs will stay strong. I think there's a whole mix. One thing doesn't drive success. Winning on the field doesn't drive success off the field. And a prime example of that is the Brisbane Roar. It's a huge success back to back. They're a disaster at the moment.
Wow.
Because
despite winning a couple of A-Leagues.
They won 3 back-to-backs.
That's right.
They had a great era, but they didn't fix their off.
Berisha, what's his name?
Berisha.
Berisha.
There's a whole lot of it. Ange was the
Ange is a coach, yeah.
So I think it just shows, it's like driving a Mercedes out the front doesn't mean you're a happy person.
You've been called many times to save clubs. You were called for the Fury. I wouldn't say, because I don't know the details of it, to be honest, when you called to go into MacArthur FC, but I know there was a lot of drama happening for a new club. How do you save a club? How do you bring a club from the dumps into becoming a successful club? You touched on it earlier, but what makes a club successful? How do you cultivate that hard work environment, all of you working under one man or one heart rather than individual?
Look, I think you've got to understand what's the purpose. Like, MacArthur, I think, was a great example of, from a club perspective, what could grow into a big club, big community, understand the culture, understand what it is. And I think what sport drives us, we think on-field success will drive off-field success. And it's the other way around. Your off-field success will drive on-field success because players come and go. Your supporters will be there, if you build that right. And I think we all get caught up. We all want to win. See, this is the problem. We're all motivated by, if you start something, it's all about winning. You forget you don't build the foundation. It's like building. You don't start with the roof. You start with the foundation. Now, if your foundations are wobbly, the house can look really great. It'll just collapse. Sport's no different. And, understanding what you are. And everyone has a different view. There's no magic formula. I think it's whoever is involved in the club. I always say there's no such thing as a bad volunteer. Right? Because I think anyone who gives up their time at sporting clubs, is a good person because they're giving up time. It's just sometimes they stay a bit longer than they should, and get for the next person. When you're talking about professional clubs, it's a different scenario because there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of pressure, both on and off the field. So you've got to firstly understand what it is, have patience, have a plan. I mean, if you look at the Cowboys, rugby league side, now they're 30 years old this year, off-field success significantly, a lot of problems. Super League came in, but they even to this day, they actually haven't forgotten how they got there and, the roots of the Cowboys, and they've just built on it and they've been patient enough to do it. So it takes time. And I think to build a professional sporting team, you must have patience, right? And you can't keep rebuilding every 5 years. Like it means the first builder you should get rid of. So, look, there's no magic formula. Running a professional sporting club has different, pressure aspects because you've got the media, you've got the supporters, you've got your sponsors, you've got players, you've got so many different stakeholders. And in some cases, they're all conflicting, except one thing, the team has to win.
That's right. They all agree on that.
If everyone winning just hides failure sometimes. So, you could win every week. You still have a disaster off the field because all it takes is one loss and the thing falls apart. Look, if you look at the Brisbane Broncos, they're a great example in the pressure on that club to succeed. And they've had some not good, make a grand final. Next year, the 2024, they drop out, lose their coach. The pressure's on. But their foundations are solid. So financially, they've always been rock solid because they've kept that going. They hate losing like everyone, but they maintain their off-field pressures and grow. Like Melbourne Storm, there's some really good clubs that have gone through it. And there's no magic formula. It's just hard work. Focus on it. It's not delivered, You've got to have success both on and the field. But on the field, it will fluctuate depending on the players.
That's right.
You can't control your on-field performance because you can get injuries, you can get bad luck, a whole lot of stuff. Off the field, you can control that because you can manage that process.
So you went from managing these big clubs and not as a manager, so someone doesn't misunderstand as a coach.
No. Administrator.
Administrator, CEO, right? Or chairman?
I was CEO of the Cowboys. I was chairman of MacArthur. MacArthur because we put the bids together, won the license, then started. So North Queensland Fury, the A-League side, a bit different because they were struggling. Then I came in with Football Australia, asked for me to help, so I took over as CEO and part of a subcommittee that we ran that. So they're probably the last 3 gigs that I had. And then would I go back into professional sport? No. I think that, it's a different model, different era. Now my focus, is more at the community level that I think we can make a big difference and lift it. Because without community sport, there's no such thing as professional sport.
That's right.
So, and that's what you got to do. And I think that's where my goal is.
Well, I was watching you when you took on the role at the Wynyard Wolves, right?
Wynyard Wolves?
Wynyard Wolves, yeah. And then all of a sudden I see that the rain...
The floods 3 years ago.
They abolished the club. The club went into ruins. And you have this... I'm watching you from afar here because I only knew about you. I knew you were my cousin, my dad's cousin, but from what my dad would tell me. But then as I turn into an adult and, have my own family, we still follow each other on social media. And I'm like, yeah, watch Rabieh do something. Because I'll digress here again. I once called you when I was running the club with my friend, local club, and we needed help and tips. And I told him, you know what, let me reach out to my cousin. And considering how busy you are, you answered the phone and then you even followed it up with, when I come back to Sydney, we'll have a coffee. And you gave me advice back then. And you said, focus on the grassroots. And I said, Rabieh, but we want to look at the Premier League teams and we want to go further. You told me, don't worry about that. Build your grassroots. And even for the local club, I've digressed here, but I remember this. We did that and we had like 8 under 6s.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, the club flourished.
Yeah, I think that, look, it's... People always think that the goal, being a CEO of a major sporting team or chairman, it's this wow, as you get older, it's not as exciting as you think it is. It's a job, right? And I only started enjoying sport when I stopped becoming involved in the professional game.
Wow.
Because sport was a job. When I stopped, now I'll go to sport and I'll actually enjoy it more. Where before it was part of your job. So you actually didn't enjoy the experience because you were there looking after people or you had issues to deal with. You were there from a different angle. You weren't there as a spectator to enjoy it. You were there as an employee or part of a group to make sure manage it. And then, if the team wins, great, we have a success. It means Monday's going to be good. If we lose, you know what Monday was going to be like. So it was that sort of, and I have hats off to every administrator in professional game because I understand the impact it has. But I actually now enjoy sport better now as I've been out of the professional game because I'm going there from an enjoyment perspective, not because it's a job. And I think most people, when I was in those roles, you're the CEO of the Cowboys. How great is that? I'm thinking, yeah, it's great, but unless you get the death threats and you wake up and you feel those sort of things, it's a job. So now I'm a little more, I like sport. We're a sporting family, but you enjoy it for you. But remember, we all have a journey. You just got to remember how you got to the journey and, how you got there. And it's not all rosy, look, there's been some hard times, some battles, but you'll learn as you go along. And you always remember how it all started. And if you always go back and remember how it all started, you'll actually do quite well.
Wow. So you reflect on the past. You remember where you came from.
Well, look, it's, you can never forget where you came from. And I think sometimes what we try and do is forget what happened. But what happened in our past sets you for the future, and it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, it's we don't do many storytelling these days. We're a society that lives off TikTok or all the other social medias. We've lost the art of communication. And, we communicate through social media. We communicate through text messaging. We actually don't do storytelling. And storytelling is the part that passes generation to generation to generation. I mean, who's going to read a text message in 10 years' time? Someone watch a video. It's like even at our club now, we're recording a lot more. Vicky, my wife, wrote the 100-year book of the club. So
Wow.
There's a history there. Because you want to pass that generation. And one thing community sporting clubs don't do very well is record stories, and don't celebrate success. When you ran your club, when one of your kids made a representative team, did you celebrate?
No.
Why? That's what we don't do. We don't. Or, one of our kids goes on to a bigger club, most clubs get upset about it. Right? We celebrate because
Wow.
we've created that. So it's all about self-interest back then. So, we're a child playing sport for us. The club doesn't own that player, right? We're just a part of that journey. And I've said to our players, we will help you. You'll either outgrow us or we outgrow you. That'll come through a journey. And I think that's what we don't do. As I said, you see junior clubs that say, oh, this club took our best player.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's sell it and promote it. This player went to this club, fantastic. We created that player. We get upset and then the club says, oh, you're banned from our club because you left us, you and your whole family, rather than celebrate success. We don't that's the art we want to get back into community sport, that we've created success rather than we've lost success.
We've lost success. You seem to always have had this positive outlook where...
I don't know about that. But
well, what I mean by that, just the way you're looking at it through that lens of, I had an example in the amateur level where a great coach who came from nothing in a sense, wasn't expected to become a coach, was a father, became a coach, great coach, coached his son, then wasn't happy with a few things, which was fine, disagreeing. He took the whole team and went to another club, ended up becoming the president of that club. Yeah. And I remember telling the president at the time, let's look at it that we made, even though I wasn't aware of what you said now, but I looked at it, well, let's look at it this way, that we made him, we helped him get there, and we celebrate it, and we'll just do the same thing with someone else and actually build the bridge with him rather than being enemies in the local clubs.
I think one of the things we look at is that, I always have this when parents tell me, oh, who's coaching my son? Does it really matter? You're playing for the club, because I can't guarantee the person who's coaching you today will be there in 3 weeks' time. They could get transferred from a job. And I think that, it's club number one. So the club sets the values. It doesn't matter who's coaching you. If the club has the right philosophies, right values, the kids will stay there. But when a player comes to your club and it's because of an individual, then you're not really a club, because that individual will even take the whole team.
That's right.
So in that example, we had this club, at our club, same thing. We had coaches come, they left, took the whole team. So now when we built, no, that's not how we build clubs. So we don't talk about, when someone says, this is my team, so sorry, you can't coach in our club.
Whoa.
Because it's our team, right? And you're part of that. And parents say, who's coaching? It doesn't matter. This is our philosophy as a club. You're joining our club because of this. And everyone we're going to put in those roles. Now, not everyone agrees with it. That's okay, but that's not who we are. And because if we're tied to an individual, we don't have a sense of belonging because we're tied to that person. But if we're tied to a club or a city, it's like people who say, I live in Liverpool. I'll never leave Liverpool, because they're tied to the area, because it has all the conveniences for it. Sporting club is like that. If people are tied to your football club or rugby league club, or doesn't matter what club is, they're tied because you offer those sort of things, not because an individual does it. Right. And I think that's what we've got to change. We've got to get clubs to talk about the club themselves, not because of a player or an individual. People come and go. Clubs don't.
That's right.
And so successful clubs survive because they have a culture and go through. That's my simple formula. I don't know, that's a philosophy. That's only based on what I have seen, and it works for different people. Some people are motivated by just winning. That's it. That's okay. That's their philosophy. They're not aligned to who we are. You don't change your values because it suits an individual, right? You set it up. That's your success. That's who you are, and you set it up for the next group of people to come in and follow through, So, at Wynnum Wolves, it's taken, where we are now 6 years since then, to make sure this is who we are. We've gone through some tough times. We've lost people, come people. Now people want to join us because of who we are. And because it's not because of an individual. The club has that,
Do you find you've applied that in everywhere you went, that philosophy?
Yeah, look, it is, and it gets harder as things change, right? And technology has made that a little bit harder, because I think we lost the art of communicating, right? Communicating through technology is fantastic, but the art of talking to somebody and negotiating and doing those sort of things is what makes it. But sometimes we use technology, what I think, to do things that human, like face-to-face, should do. You've got to have that sense of feeling, but I think you've got to embrace it. But at the end of the day, the art of communication is not a text message. It's not a messenger. It's that dialogue of two people talking. And I think we're building generations of, people who the art of communicating is not a skill. It's a skill rather than a given. And I also think we've lost a generation, what I think in the last 20, and I say this openly, and I've said it, in many speeches I've done, we've lost the art of volunteering because it's me first, everyone else second, rather than that sort of, embracing and what we do. And, and I think we have to change that. And I think we're gradually doing that, but it'll take time because we have a generation of people that don't know how to, they think money can buy you that rather than, it's not about the money, it's about the values and the sensibility. And I think we're going to see a change shift because I think that's what's going to happen.
How did you go from suffering the floods and losing the grounds, and your whole club was flooded, right?
We were all flooded, yeah. I think that if you want to go on our Facebook page, website, you'll see the video. We were all connected by water. We had, and it was 27th of February, 2022. I think we looked at it, when we walked in that Saturday morning and said, oh, okay, we're in trouble here because it was day of our season launch. It was of our season launch that day. And it was, the water came and we lost everything. And at that time, it was two things. You can say it's all too hard, let's just all quit. Or, you know what, there's an opportunity. And I think it was the opportunity, and I think we took a positive attitude that, you know what, we're not going to allow this to happen again. This is just ridiculous because the club had previously flooded, no more than 8 years earlier. But when they built it or changed it, they didn't lift it above. They didn't put flood mitigation work in. I think that's it. We're going to do this. We're going to change the way we do things. And, to the credit of the council, the state government, and the feds, we've worked a lot hard, and the community. People forget 1,000 people turned up one Saturday morning and cleaned up the place in 4 hours.
Wow.
Right. And, and I think that set people realize, we mean something to people. And so that started that journey, and, of what the club meant to people, and said, okay, this is who we are. And I think the club's had some very good, exceptional life members. There's a gentleman named Wayne Gracie at the club who's had 52 straight years, either from a player to a coach to a committee, who probably embodies what the club's all about. He, and talking to him, and he sort of, was disenchanted with the club, disenfranchised, and a whole lot of people because the club lost its focus. It became about winning. So that sort of embraced the whole change. And I think you take that in everything, take it in every part of society, whether it's in your work environment. If people embrace, they'll stick along. But then they, if you upset them or you don't understand or you don't challenge, people become disenfranchised. As I said, we've become a society where people will change jobs because they don't like their boss. Oh. Parents will change schools because they don't like the school teacher.
Yes.
People will go and start another charity because they don't like the charity they got. And everyone do all these things. I mean, we've become a society where change is easy. We just go somewhere else. We haven't built it. We've lost that resilience where we can work through challenges. And, and I think for me, growing up as a child, you had to deal with it. It wasn't like, I went to Coogee Primary. We moved from Coogee, went to Picnic Point. Then we went to Kurnell. When you go to school, you can't speak a word of English. Now, it was easy to do nothing, but you become resilient. And I think and because we might not like to have school, it didn't mean we changed schools. We just had to put up with it and say, you know what, toughen up. You've got to work through that process. It wasn't that person's fault. You've got to change. So I think today we've made it easier to change rather than to succeed.
Being in an education field myself, and I've had parents call me and say, can you change my son or daughter's classroom? And I say, why? Is there a problem? Can I help you? Before jumping to the gun and saying, yeah, no problem, and give them what they want, because it doesn't work like that. And they say, he doesn't like the teacher. And then I arrange a face-to-face meeting because I prefer the dialogue rather than text or on the phone. Yeah. And I say to him, your child's going to grow from the primary years to the year 12. He's going to have a lot of teachers. Then he's going to go to university or TAFE or wherever it may be. He may not like his boss. He may not like the colleague that's with him. And I went on to give those analogies. Just because he can't see eye to eye the teacher because he doesn't like the teacher, if you're going to allow him to change classes, and I can if you want, he's going to get used to just changing. Then he'll go to year 7 to the high school and say, oh, I don't like the school for whatever reason. All right, let's keep changing schools.
I think that's it's a common theme.
Yeah.
We've become a society where it's easy to blame somebody. And look, there's no question that sometimes there is
Of
an
course.
issue for the benefit of the child. You actually got to make the change.
That's right.
But it's become the easy solution, where someone doesn't like because someone said to them, you don't do it this way. Well, straight away the child is unhappy rather than working through it. And sort of we've got a stage where it's the easy option to take, and parents have become a lot easier because they don't want to deal with the headache for a child who's upset. They don't want to have the tough discussion with the child. We don't want to have that. It's like giving every child a participation medal.
Yeah.
But we've lost the art of resilience. Now, when I went to school, there was 3, first, second, third. That was it, Now everyone gets one. Now, I understand the rationale behind that, absolutely, because, and this is where I go back to what I said earlier, we became so focused on winning.
That's right.
When I was at school, you participated. The top 3 got 1, 2, 3, but everyone felt part of the process. Where now we put these kids to finish first on a platform that all the other kids are, I don't want to do it because I'm not on that platform. So I think we created that, and our solution was let's give everyone a participation medal, right? And we've actually undone what we think is that resilience embedded in people that you have to work a little bit harder. The person is successful because kids change. I see it in kids' sport. Just because you're a good 9-year-old doesn't make you a good 10-year-old. It's the journey that you go through, and I think we change that. But we have to teach that, and I think a lot of that is parents have to embed that with their kids, that it's not easy. Life is not the worst thing you're going to do is not finish first, second, or third in a school race. Life is pretty good. So it's that resilience, and I think it's tougher for migrants as well. I think being a migrant today is harder than when I came to Australia. I think when we came as migrants, we had to embrace, we had to take those challenges. Now, we've created, in some ways, a lot of positives, in some ways turned to a negative because we got caught up. We didn't want to, it's like someone, it's like someone, all they do is eat steak and chips. They won't try other foods, right? In some cases, we've created cultures where they won't try anything else because it's safe. We're in numbers where us growing up, we had to embrace, understand different cultures, different feel, adopt, but never lose focus of who you are, right? And then goes back to what I said earlier. Your family set that, don't change your name.
That's right.
Right? Don't change who you are, be proud of who you are. Don't hide it, and where it was for kids, they thought their way of, integrating was, well, I'll become rather than Rabieh, I'll become Robert.
That's right.
Rather than I'll become, I thought that was way, in some ways, it sounded easy, but I think that probably damaged the integration because as you go older, like I know now, not too many Rabiehs in the world of what I'm involved in. So it becomes my biggest advantage. What, as a kid, I thought it was my worst disadvantage because teachers couldn't pronounce your name right, but it didn't matter. And I think how people pronounce your name doesn't define who you are. It actually tells them who you are. So I think that's it. But nowadays, I think we've lost the art of understanding, we want to get involved in things that we're not experienced to get involved in. We focus. And for change, it's easier to change from within rather than outside.
If you mentioned earlier that you've always tried to make the most of your opportunities, and if you can leave the viewers with one piece of advice, what would it be? Whether they're in their 20s or their 30s, one piece of advice that resonates with you in navigating life in Australia.
Never worry about what other people have. Just worry about what makes you happy. And look, that's probably my best advice, is that just remember how you got to where you are, either positively or negatively. If it's a positive experience, just focus on that. If it was a negative, learn from that change. It doesn't matter what you achieve in life. Just remember how you got there and be thankful and be nice to people, right? And I always say this, my father always taught me this. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice and help someone. Right? It's probably the easiest thing you can do. Like people ring me, yeah, if I can help someone, I will. Right? People say, why? Well, why wouldn't I? You know, the hardest thing in life is to ask for help, but it's the easiest thing to do, to help someone. And we, you know, when someone asks us for help, the good person says, I'll help you. The second person, the person with difference says, how do I take advantage of it?
Oh.
So, you know, your best advice, you can help someone, help them. It doesn't cost you to help somebody.
Oh, that's amazing advice. I don't know when I can catch you again because you're actually not from the state, and your time here is very short, but I definitely would love to do another episode with you.
Yeah, sure. Look, my father tells me now I have to come more because he's not well.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure I'll be down, you know, on a more regular basis. But I think, look, you know, it's sharing is what we should be doing, and most importantly, I think whatever we do, we always learn something, and you know that's the most important thing. It's not what we do today; it's how we got there, and then what we leave behind, and that's the most important thing.
Thank you for coming on the Chronicles of Faith.
My pleasure. See you next time.
Yeah.